podcast. I am your host, Salenna Green. This is a space where we discuss diverse topics and how they relate to healing. This is a safe space for everybody. So come in, gather around, sit down somewhere, child. We're about to get into it. Today we are talking about interracial love with two people that I personally love. These women are amazing. They are loyal. They are professionals. Okay, they got good jobs. These women know what they want to do with their lives, and they are, either with or seeking partners who are here to love and nourish them. So let's get into these introductions. Who wants to go first? Okay, don't everybody volunteer.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm originally from New York, but I've lived in Seattle, Washington now for like the last almost 5 years. I work in tech. I started dating officially, I think, when I was about 17. And I'm a Capricorn. I'll do all that. How about that?
Okay, Steph.
Just having a little computer issues. I'm Stephanie. I'm originally from Oregon, moved here when I was 11, so I'm really grown. So it's been a few years in Washington. I'm a Cancer, if you want to know that. I work in government, and my dating experience has been a lot of long-term relationships, I would say, and just trying to figure it out as I go, just finding my path throughout it all.
Awesome. And per usual, I'm your host. I'm a Virgo. Today, as I said, we are talking about interracial love. So before we really get into the conversation today, let's just establish for our listeners, are you currently in a relationship? Are you available? Are you single and unavailable? What's your sitch? Spill the tea.
I am unavailable at this time. I've been with my boyfriend, Jason, for over a year. I should know the months, but I don't, so let's just not tell him that. It's been over a year, though. I got that part right. And we have a beautiful 2-year-old dog together, and he's a white male.
White dog or the, no, I'm just kidding.
the dog. The man. The dog's tan. I don't know. He's a mixed baby. A mixed beetle.
It was, yes, I am currently single. I'm still out here. I'm still in these streets, dating, trying to figure it out.
Okay, valid, and I'm sure relatable for a lot of our listeners today. So, as you all may or may not know, I am married, have been for the last 7 years, and my partner is Mexican indigenous. And so that's a whole thing. Like, that's my boo, my man. Okay, so, and before that, my dating experience, because that's really, I feel like, kind of what this is about. Dating or marrying or being open to interracial love. My dating experience was largely not interracial, and I do want to just put that out there. My husband, I met him during, what could be described as a hoe phase. What could be described as a hoe phase.
We didn't say nothing.
But look, he shook out of the rotation, okay? And here we are, happily married. And that's my boo. My dating experience was a little ghetto. Like, I don't know. They was either doing too much or too little, without getting into too much detail of how somebody thought they was going to date me and their ex-girlfriend, or how somebody told me that the devil didn't want us to be apart or together. I forget which one. But the devil had a way in on that relationship. It was too much for me. I don't need the devil weighing in on my relationships. I was like, I got to go. So We won't be getting into detail about that. But
I think I got all the
how was your
details I
dating
needed from that.
experience? Right. I think that was maybe all we needed.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go. For me, it was kind of wild, especially when I was younger. I feel like I was, I'm a Cancer, so I love, and I love to like, nurture. And so I would fall in love quickly, and it wasn't like real love. It was just like I'm just gonna love you and take care of you. And I feel like I dated a lot of like white males early on, and I would be in, few years with the guys, and then I dated a few black males as well, and I actually had one good relationship with a guy, but he was like older than me back then. Though I was like maybe 22 and he was 28, so it wasn't like that much older. But when it came to what we were ready for in life, like he was like, I'm trying to wife someone up, and I was still partying because I waited until I was like 21 to start partying, so I was still partying. So that didn't work out, and then I've been engaged a few times, never married, and it just took time. I just had to like do some self love and some self care. It was a huge thing for me to really process my needs and to put myself first. In order to open space for my relationship now. And I think that was really important for my journey, is finding my self-love and recognizing that I can put myself first, and it's not me being, like self-centered or anything. It's just in order for me to love someone else, I have to really like recognize my needs. So that's where I am now. To be continued, right?
Yes, we will definitely be getting more into that.
I would say for me, my dating experience, like, it was pretty much like non-existent in high school. Like, I remember I had like a 1 week relationship in high school, and it was around Valentine's Day. Like, there was a guy who like I sort of thought was cute, like, and we were doing like after school activities together. And it was more so FOMO. It wasn't like I actually liked him. It was just like all these chicks are getting flowers and stuff on Valentine's Day, and I'm not. And I'm trying to get a carnation like everybody else, $1 carnation. So like, yeah, I entertained the relationship, and then slowly found out like I was already bailing on it like a couple weeks in, because like dude was trying to walk me from every single class, which like I guess was probably romantic, but in my Capricorn brain was like, this is inefficient. You're making me late for class. I didn't wait for you when you have another class completely on the opposite side. Like, let's meet up at lunch. Let's talk then. Like, he was getting weird. He was getting territorial a couple days in, and I was just like, I'm not even allowed to date. Like, that's not even true. Which is true.
No.
I think it was true. So I was just like, yeah, I'm not even allowed to date. But then that guy like ended up stalking me for like a little bit, and then my like dad had to step in. So to me it was like, oh yeah, no, like dating, not now, not now at all. He was black. He was a black guy, because I wasn't initially into the squirrel myself, just because I was always into who liked me at the first, because I was kind of asexual, because I was just focused on my studies.
Right.
So like until about like 17, the only people I entertained were like animated, like my bae, like my bae was like, Batman Beyond, but like when he was in a suit, like not Terry McGinnis Batman, So yeah, it wasn't until 17 I had my first proper date. I moved out to school, started a year early, because I was that kind of, kid. And it was cool because I was just walking to class, because I went to a school out in Brooklyn, well, New York, whatever. It wasn't in Brooklyn exactly. And yeah, he just walked up to me, tall, handsome, chocolatey. And it was just like, hey, can I take you out to something, something? And he was like a junior, so he was like in his 20s. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is what it'll be like now. This is life.
Not a little meet cute.
Yeah, I mean, Meet cute. That's
Oh,
right. But either way, like the date itself kind of was like, this is it's the tone of the date set everything that I needed to know about dating. Like, first off, it was 45 minutes late. And I remember sitting there by the fountain. I was supposed to meet him up thinking, like, I should go. After 15, I'm out. After
yeah.
15, I'm out. I did that 4 times, 45 minutes passed, and he showed up. Right?
Oh my God. Sid.
I asked him to plan the date because he was asking me to do it. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I didn't let it on that was my first date. So I was just like, you show me something about you, take me someplace that, you like so that I could get to know about you. Like, I tried to make it cute. Bro takes me to the movies down the street and then chose like a movie that was like American Sniper, I think. It was the one with, like it was some guy like he's a popular white guy in film. He was 007. He was
I'm
in
sorry.
vacation. Anyways,
I'm crying. What is that supposed to tell you about him? Like,
not a
what?
damn thing. The movie was awful. It was awful. That's all. The point of it, it was awful. It was one of those like Death of a salesman type things where like at the end everybody dies and then they all bleed out and then the camera zooms out to like a beautiful sky and it's like no redemption, right?
I'm done.
And he was just having the best time ever and he was like, yeah, that's such a good movie. It was so good. And on my face, I'm like, if you were paying attention, you would know I'm not feeling none of this.
Yeah.
We went and played some Guitar Hero and I whooped him a little bit on Yellow by Coldplay. And then he took me to McDonald's afterwards. And so, I'm eating my 2 piece.
I mean, it's college
I
life.
mean, yeah.
That McDonald's is better than Taco Bell.
I mean, at the end of it, I was just like, I'm not seeing you again. I don't know what dating is, but it ain't it,
Honestly, the McDonald's was like the highlight of what you just told me.
What's the highlight? That's when I was having the most fun because I love fries. Like the rest of the whole situation was just a long, weird thing. Like,
yeah.
Honestly,
my
Sid,
way into the dating world.
no, I feel your pain, honestly. I was very asexual growing up. Like, honestly, every crush that I ever had in elementary, middle, or high school was literally just so that I would have something to do to pass the fucking time.
Like, if you want
Okay, I grew up in the suburbs. Shit was boring. Okay, so you had to invent, like, you really had to see, like, the beauty in every person
Yeah.
because there was no options. So invent a world that is interesting or die by the boredom of the reality of your situation.
Yeah. I used to get in trouble trying to spice up my life. Like, I would say, like people kept asking me, who you like? And I'd just be like, calculating most popular guy that most people have a crush on, so they're not going to actually think I'm going to go for him. Oh, I like Daniel. And then, but then those little would go and be like, oh. And then they go whisper. It's just like, oh, I like Daniel. And I would say it in a way that, like, back when you said like, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say like. So that I could always claim like friendship. That's what I meant. I was naive and I didn't know, So they would go snitch to Daniel and they'd be like, oh, Sydney likes you. And then I was in the middle of the class while I'm watching them go off like a clock. And then they go talk to Daniel and then I just smile at them and wave and they'd be confused by my behavior because they're like, why isn't she freaking out? It was a form of bullying that I didn't realize at the time.
Yeah, they messy because like what?
And then they'd come back to me in their little horde and just be like, wait a minute, did you mean, like, what did you mean by you like Daniel? I'm like, yeah, no, he's a great friend. Like, he's cool to chill with. And they'd be like, no, we didn't mean that. And then they'd try to explain what like meant. And I just keep frustrating them until they left me alone.
I feel it. I ain't never liked how boys had people acting at my school. I went to, in middle and high school, I went to a small, like, art school. So, like, there wasn't a lot of boys there anyway. And so whenever there was, like, everybody just, like, got this, like, wild, like, feral look in their eyes almost. And, like, Like the way they would flock to these little boys. Like he 12, he don't even know what to do with all this attention. Calm the fuck
He's
down.
well
Like
in his head before he even understands what's happening in his body.
right.
Like,
I was just the person who was normal towards them. Like I remember going to school and girls freaking out about these like twins. You know, we love some twins in American culture too, so that might be a part of it too. But I remember just being like pretty cool with like they're just regular ass people. Like I don't know. I just never really got the whole craze of like dating, and I feel like that really transferred like from my adolescence into my adulthood. Like I was never really going crazy for any of these men's, but is really just like kind of you know where I'm an earth sign too, Sid. It's kind of like a calculation. Like, is this person presenting to me the characteristics that I believe will be compatible with me long term? It was usually an immediate no, or it was a no after a couple of weeks, or it was a no after a few months. And then after that, I was like, all right, well, on to the next, or out of my rotation, and we'll see if we can fill your spot with someone else until I settle down.
Yeah. I didn't actually date until I think I was 19 years old. And like before that, like in high school, I just had a crush on like the smartest guy in my class because then I could just go like do homework with them or something. That was like, like how I hung out with guys, but I didn't, I was really similar. Like I was too focused on school and my parents like had a lot of expectations. And then college, it was interesting because my mom was like, you're going to find your husband in college. Like she always said that, but I actually,
Yeah.
I didn't date a guy I went to school with ever. I like friend zoned like every single one of them I could. And I was just like, and I dated outside of school because I don't know why, but I just was never really interested in any of the men I like went to school with. I just liked being their friend and, being a part of their life in that way.
Yeah, school was just never a place for dating for me. I feel like maybe I unconsciously took that to college.
Yeah.
Because if you really paid attention, they was just as messy in college as they were in high school when it came to like, dating people who went to the same school and then you're seeing them on campus. Like, I don't got time for drama in my life. I don't.
I think for me, I had such a very tame life. Like I was in public school when I graduated, but my parents had tried putting me in a couple private schools at the beginning because they were hoping it would give me an edge. But what always ended up being the situation is I was the only Black girl put in the class, like in the entire grade, like sometimes in the area. And so I had to keep switching because I was getting like bullied a lot. And I was just like gentle giant, I was physically bigger. So I wasn't seen as like, I think like the petite, cute girls, like, even though like at that time I didn't have any idea of like attractiveness, I knew about desirability and I knew I wasn't desirable, at least in the spaces where I was mostly surrounded by white men, white women, that kind of thing. So public school was kind of the first experience, I joined when I was like 11, of any type of acceptance or any type of like expression, self-expression. Like when I went to those schools, I had to wear uniforms. I couldn't have certain hair colors. Like they used to try to come for me for my beads, which is funny. I'm bringing them back. But like my mom and me had a conversation where like she had to go to school, complain to them because they were telling me that my beads were distracting this class. Like they were a problem. They were this, like they were falling and, just all these other things to try to make me be normalized and make me not stand out. And I kept feeling like I was getting a lot of negative attention. So I just
like, what do they mean they're falling? Like if a barrette falls out of the white girl's hair, can she no longer wear a hair clip?
Yes,
like,
where
does it end?
It's obvious it wasn't fair, like it was clear to me at the time because all those kinds of things would happen, I have girls who wouldn't even talk to me, asking me to braid their hair in recess, and me being happy to just have someone to talk to was like, sure, like whatever you need, like just a mess. But yeah, for me, I think I when college ran around, I was just excited to be in the cut. Like I didn't care about like whether I was winning, who was the most popular girl. Like that was also a form of free like expression for myself, just trying to figure myself out. So I actually had like the funnest time now that I think about it, like kind of being in the drama, like kind of having the like
Okay.
tension of like, ooh, does he like me or is he just trying to play games? Like, and I would be like a child asking my friends like, what does this mean? I'm like, I was talking to Bander. I'm just making it up. There's no guy named Bander.
Hmm.
I'm talking to Bander, and we were just having a conversation by the subway, and he just put his hand on my stomach. And that was weird. Like, what does that mean? Because I was just like, the stomach is not an erogenous zone. Like, what is that? And they're like, oh, that's flirting. And I was like, is it? Is it flirting? But
So what like, and I feel like we talked about it maybe a little bit already as far as like, who's been attracted to you, but like what opened you up to dating interracially? Because, we all Black, right? We know the narratives. We know especially, I think how they've changed as we grew up. Like, I feel like there's definitely more like harsh or more like strict perceptions of a Black woman who dated outside of her race, maybe when we were growing up, things perpetuating in movies or what have you. But the narrative has changed a little bit, but like, there's still a mostly negative connotation with it for Black women. So what made you so bold as to choose yourself?
Um, for me, I actually grew up like with a Black mother and a white non-biological father. So I've always had like an interracial couple in my life. But I also I was kind of raised in two homes. I was also raised by my godparents as well. And they were a, Black love relationship, Black male, Black female. And so I kind of got to see both sides, and I was embraced in both types of relationships. But I think that allowed me the space like early on to not be worried about, like the race of the person or the color of the skin of the person I loved. And just be more focused on like, who are they? And like, like understanding like their soul, like let me look into your soul and see if your soul can connect with my soul. So it was never really like a challenge or a question within my family on who I loved or what that would look like or how others might perceive me because of who I loved. And I also, my siblings, they're all mixed as well. So it just wasn't anything I questioned. So yeah, early on, I just was interested in whoever I was interested in, and didn't question it. And I say in my family, because once I started dating interracially, right? Like we can get into that later, but that changed. It wasn't about my family's perceptions of me. It became more of like society.
Right.
But that's at least how it started. Yeah.
Nice. Sid, what about you?
my journey was a lot more calculated. I had
This Capricorn energy, okay?
I didn't realize how much it you know what, it's fine, whatever. Like it's the, child of an accountant and a teacher. It's the two Gemini parents who, one is pushing logic and one is pushing emotion. So like, it's funny because I can't, like, once again, like I don't think I wanted to be in a relationship, but I found myself very, very romantic or very emotional. Like even despite that, like I remember I had an intense crush on somebody like from church, and I was like writing poetry about them. Like Helga Pataki from Hey Arnold was like, I am her, like we are together. This person is in my locket metaphorically, and I am writing about you. And it was a Black boy. But I think
Were you mean to him in public though? I feel like that was a key part of her.
That was sometimes a thing, but I was too nice. So like my attempt at mean would be like, I'm not even trying to talk to you anyways. Have this juice back. Like I was a little tsundere, like sort of, right? Saying it with the pronunciation, tsundere. But what ended up happening for me, honestly, is even at that age, I was realizing certain things. Like I was realizing that, because I was in the AP classes, even when I was in college, I was looking originally at a law track. a lot of my interests, anime or like I was a huge nerd at the time, so like I chill out at the library. Like my surroundings were devoid of black men for the most part.
Mm.
And
Oh,
black
really?
men, yeah, no, I mean, I remember there would usually be like at least one other black kid, just like one other black boy in my class at AP, and it would just be the two of us, like,
Mm.
and and I think he was gay, like he wasn't trying to talk to me, like every time I would go to some place for interest, I would usually find, I just would not be around other black boys. And so the only time I would really be around black boys was when I was on the school bus. And then they're the ones in
Mhm.
the back of the bus shouting, screaming, cussing, talking about, boobs and stuff like they just seemed abrasive to me because like anytime they ever came up on me, it was all quick. Like they would like jump into the seat next to me and I would be like, like, it was just a situation where I didn't feel like, hey, I was desired by them because even the ones that I had crushes on, I would get rejected from without them even knowing that I liked them, like by them just
Mm.
talking about the girls that they did like and all the attributes that I didn't have. Like
Mm.
it was a situation where a lot of the boys around me, in order to survive in the environments that we were both in, where we were the only ones, they either like started assuming more of like white culture. Like I remember like a couple of them, well, like I actually would get into it. Like we would have animosity because one of them we used to talk about how affirmative action wasn't necessary and like just things that they knew that their white counterparts wanted to hear. Like
Mm.
whatever it was, like, like OJ did it, like just
Mhm.
whatever they needed to say to garner that level of support. Um,
Uh,
so it became a situation where I was like, why is this the case? And then I cracked open my books and then started reading statistics. And like the first statistic I found was like, because of the rate of incarceration of black men, even if every single black man, on the planet, excluding incarceration, ended up with a black woman, there would still be black women who would not end up with a black man. And
mhm.
so I got this book called like Ready to Swirl or like Swirling 101. But it was this black woman who was talking about the concept of interracial dating, why black women should consider it, a
You're
bunch of
such an
statistical
earth
analysis.
sign.
Like,
You like I did some research.
yeah, and then like I took that and then I also got the Dating for Dummies book. Like I was approaching love from a
Mm.
logical standpoint, which also explains why I was striking out in the beginning. You know. And basically, I was doing that. And then I was going on the internet in the wee hours of YouTube. And that was around like the first time when they introduced the statistic of like Asian men and black women are the least desirable groups. When you look at the
Mhm.
swipes on dating apps and stuff, and that was having me
Mhm.
in my feelings. And so then a bunch of Asian guys who were like, "Ooh, I can make content out of this," and maybe some of them were genuine, but listen, content. Where it started doing a bunch of like AMBW, Asian man, black woman videos talking about how they did find black women beautiful and they did want to be with us. And it was the first time I had ever experienced somebody just talking good about black women. And so I started opening the idea of starting to date Asian men. And so in college, I started dating Asian guys, like dudes straight off the boat from Korea, dudes straight off the boat from, Japan. Like, and it was interesting because it made me realize that I could have that attraction too to other people. And
Mhm.
then it widened to everybody else. Like, I think I was first on a minority only party. And then, when I started getting asked out by white guys and saw that that was viable too, I was like, oh, so you mean the world is my oyster? I just need to find somebody who will talk to me and give me the vibe that I need. So I date everybody at this point. Why are you laughing at me, Selena?
It's just the way you speak about things. You're like, and then I saw that that was viable too, and then I acquired it, and this asset has been growing in
I mean,
value.
my heart was pitter pattering. I wasn't fully logical. Like, there was a guy who I had the most intense crush on the entire semester. And I was just like, I love you. I just want to talk to you. It's so hard. Like, And then finally the last day, like the last day, because I used to try to walk with him on the way to the subway, and we would walk together, but
Hmm.
like that was it. And I used to think like, oh, I'm walking in the opposite direction of him. Um, and I gave my number on the last day of class, and he never called me.
Oh my
So
God. I gave my guy number two. I gave a guy my number in college too, and he also never called me.
So,
I'm like,
it's just like nothing. Not if we're talking logical, none of the evidence told me that I was doing it right. And back then, they were telling me
hmm
that there was a way to do it right. Like they were like the "he's just not into you" book was out, you know,
hmm
and you were looking at like, oh, this is the rules you need to know. Now I know all of that is tripe and love has no rules, but back then there was the insistence that there was a specific way to do it, and
hmm
if you were single, it was because you was doing it wrong. So I just
You know,
kept telling everyone.
the guy that I gave my number to, like, we had this whole little, like, stare at each other from across the room thing going on for literal months, and he never made a move. I became impatient as I said, once I see something I go get it, right? So I was like, I don't got time to play with you. Here's my number. Call me. And then once he was not like a go getter, you know what I mean? Like at this point, I put the fucking steak on your plate. All you have to do is pick up the knife
Eat.
and fork. If you are unable to do that, I was very much unattracted to him after that. I would just see him across, like, we would continue to see each other. He would continue to stare at me. I no longer had the time or interest. Like, I don't want to stare at you forever. Like, that's not a relationship, right?
It's like make
So,
another move, make out all the moves.
yeah, and that's the thing I'm not willing to do. I'm not willing to make all the moves. Like, I'm
Mhm.
willing to show my interest. Of course, I'm a competent adult. I want you to be able to show your interest as well.
Right.
So let's talk about the pros and the cons of it all. Cause I know, like, for me, no matter who my partner is, I need them to understand some certain things. I need to be able to have certain conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I ultimately need to know that they're going to have my back. Cause for me, that is life or death, walking around looking all like all this foingness in the world like this. Okay, because all this foingness do not be received the way that it should be all the time. So I just need to know that no matter who my partner is, I'm not going to have to say some things to you twice. I'm not going to have to take the time to explain to you why I need you to trust me and have my back in certain situations. That's a conversation we have one time. And then if I ever see that I'm not safe when I need to be, we not having no more conversations. And for me, that's like a pro and con that I would say is outside of interracial dating, but that exists because of racism, and that's not on usually the person that I'm dating, but because I exist in a racist society, I need to know that my partner can address some things and can stand up to some things. I've also experienced, the con of fetishization. Okay, when
Yeah.
you are black,
I'm not playing with
like
that.
us, people do come at you with some weird shit,
Oh
and
yeah.
a lot of it is based in fetish. So that's another con that you could say is out there. But then obviously the pros of like real and genuine love is like so big that it's like, obviously I'm here for it. And then also my husband doesn't fetishize me, so that helps. But
That's
what have the pros and cons been to like this experience?
Do you want to go first then?
yeah. I was gonna say you go because I was talking a lot.
I was going first a lot, but I can go again.
Oh,
Um,
I'll go.
the- well, I'm already moving in my mouth. Let's go. So with the fetish thing, that's something I had to really like learn how to recognize when I was in the dating world is if like a guy brought it up first, like if I was on the dating apps, because I was on like every dating app. You can name one. I didn't go on Tinder. That's the only one I didn't
I was
do.
on OkCupid briefly.
Okay, I didn't do that one. Okay, I did all the other ones. eHarmony, Match.com, Plenty of Fish, like Hinge, the B1 or whatever. But like if a guy if they were quick to say I've never been with a Black woman before, I'm like, nope, skirt. But I did ask, though, like after I talked to a guy for a while, if it wasn't mentioned, I'd say, have you been with a Black woman? Because the way they respond gives you enough, right? If they're like, oh no, if they're like more like laid back about it, it's like, okay, it's still safe zone. But if they're like, no, but I wanted to, I'm like, nope, skirt. But you brought it up. And yeah, I brought it up because I'm trying to feel where you are, and I'm not playing with you. Like, I'm not going to be anyone like test, like
Tommy or whatever.
So that's how I deal with that in the dating world. The cons. Let's go to the cons. One of the cons is you get to know your partner and like in your relationship and building it together, but you can't change someone's family. Like you don't have any, there's not really like changing, there's like growing in your relationship, but there's growing with the family, but it's different. They're not your partner. They have different mindsets of your partner. So that's a con in times like, I always joke when I date white males that the first time I meet their full family, there's going to be someone that touches my hair and focuses on my hair. And then there's also going to be someone that's going to show me a picture of a Black person. Like it just always happens.
Did they know? Yeah.
Yeah, they know. Like this is my friend. And I've never, it's always been my experience. Like every time I meet like a huge family, there's always that, it always happens. Someone touches my hair and someone shows me a Black person.
That's me at a new job. Like somebody always got to ask me about my hair because they know better. But, and then they always show me, they'll be like, oh, they're like, oh, you're of Nigerian descent. This is a Nigerian family that I know. Yes. And I'm like, yes. They look like great people.
It happens. It happens all the time. That's one thing, like, where you have to be ready. Like, not everyone will accept you, in a person's family, and that's something you have to accept. And you can't, like, you don't want to put that pressure on your relationship because, like, even with my blood family, I don't talk to everyone in my family. Like, I choose who's my family with my friends and with my blood. And so it's like my partner should be able to have that same, existence and decision is like they can choose who's their family. And if someone doesn't respect me, then, they can speak up and like say, hey, like we're not doing this. Other cons, I don't know. That's like the big one for me. Yeah. The pros, Jason, I love it. He'll dance. We go dancing. If I'm in the mood, we go out of town and we're like traveling, we will go dancing. Like, he's a white man, but he can dance. He has rhythm, and that's all I need. Give him some rhythm. Let's go. One that another thing that is a pro, but you have to make sure you have your voice and that you are open to speak your truth. Is like they can be, they're like be supportive of you and your journey and your experiences. But you have to like open that space or recognize if that space is available when you're dating someone. What I mean by that is like when, something happens, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. If I'm having an experience and I recognize that it's because of the way I look, I'm going to be vocal about it. I'm going to say that just happened because I'm a Black woman, or this is going on over here, and this is going to be an issue because that's a Black man, or that's, like a person of color, that's a Latino woman or male or anything. And your partner has to, like, you don't always have to agree, but they have to be like receptive to hearing your side and understanding. But for me, it's like, I need someone, oh, there's an ice cream man outside, so you might be able to hear that. But I need someone that I can have those discussions with, and that we can be open about our experiences, and that they're going to keep their eyes open and recognize, and maybe even bring it up before I do, of things that they're seeing or things that they're recognizing others are experiencing. So it can be a pro in that way, because then they can speak up, and sometimes it's nice to have, like with my father, like a white male challenging another white person, like he was saying it for me. I'm just sitting here watching you get in trouble by my daddy, So it could be a pro, because then it's not like if with my experience with my dad or my boyfriend, if someone is treating me or someone else in a negative way, and then you have like a white male speaking up, they can't say, oh, it's because you're just saying that because you're Black and you're feeling some type of way about it. Like, no, you're hearing it from like a privileged person. Like, if they're experiencing that you're oppressing someone, and that's your people or your crew, like,
and their assumed objectivity. There's no more objective than a white man.
Yeah, so that's like it's a pro to be able to have those conversations, but there are people like I have been in interracial relationships where I haven't had that. So it can also be a problem when you're like fighting to explain yourself all the time and you're like, why am I even having this conversation with you?
Right. And like for me,
around the store and thinking I'm stealing something because I have a backpack on. You walked around and you were like really looking like you're sketchy, but you weren't bothered. But now you're I'm just feeling some way. Like, no, let me tell you. So sorry, I'm all in my feels right now. But
no, that's real.
It's so true.
It can be a pro and a con, but in my relationship now it's a pro, but in the past it could also be a con. The cultural differences or the experiences, racial experiences too. So
yeah. That's hella real. And honestly, something that you, again, experience no matter who you're dating because of the body that we embody. Like, again, Tomas is like one of, I want to say the only person, because again, I wasn't out here dating a lot of people. Tomas is the only non-Black guy I've dated. And we ended up married because I am not going to argue with nobody about whether I am experiencing systemic or, interpersonal anti-Blackness. Yeah. I literally, not only do I know it because of my own experience, I know it because it is literally in my blood. Okay? Like, and in my relationship, I make it clear I am the anti-Black authority. So I will tell you if something is anti-Black. You let me know if this is anti-Mexican, if it's anti-Latinx, right? Because I might not always know. And I just want to make that the clear thing too. Like, I'm not in a relationship with a white man, but I am in a relationship with a non-Black man. And because of the unique anti-Blackness that our community faces, like, he get told about his people. Whenever I see something, I'm scrolling, I'm like, don't get your people because they're acting up again, okay? Anti-Blackness is a system that everyone benefits from except for Black people. And we got to move with that knowledge. And if we're in a relationship with a Black person or a non-Black person who doesn't acknowledge that, the amount of stress that puts on us, like, is deadly. And we already under enough stress.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Say, what's your pros and cons, child? Let me get off my soapbox.
Girl, you just drop some knowledge and you're going to be like, all right, back to the list. All right.
Because that was a con, right? Like, we always have to be worried about it.
Honestly, listen, I just felt that in my chest. I was like, ugh, I need a nap. I'm so tired from my depression. Okay, I will say, like, I appreciate both of the things that y'all said because it actually made me realize I think of my interracial dating experience in two parts. I have a completely different experience with people who are minorities but non-Black from people who are white that I've sort of dated. So I would say the overall sort of pro is the fact that you get exposure to a lot of different experiences and things that you may not. Like, my first boyfriend, he was Cuban, and like, he had a little Jamaican on his side. So, like, his mother had a similar hair texture to me. So, like not extremely, but, like, one of the things we bonded over at the first was, like, she would just bring me hair products because she knew I was struggling because I had also, like, cut my hair. Like, it was about a year into our relationship, I decided to do the big chop. And that was a big, like, move to see if he would accept me, looking kind of bald-headed, or at least how I perceived to be bald-headed, like, because it was a traumatic thing that I needed to get out of my system, but, I assumed that love would be the case. And it took him a second, but I remember the moment he warmed up to it, and it meant so much to me that I could just be myself in all these different ways. And there was a lot more intersection, I think, in minority cultures than people would realize. Like, Black folks, we care about family. We're not a monolith. We all have different expressions of it. But, like, remember his mom wasn't doing well once, and so like I helped clean, and that was such a huge thing to her because before me he had
Mm,
only dated, I think, Latinx girls or white girls, and none of them really had like a background of hospitality like I do from being Guyanese. So like,
mhm,
if I'm seeing this person as my future mother-in-law, I'm gonna treat her like she's my mom. So like our relationship was beautiful, and not getting along with my in-laws in an interracial relationship is a con that I have always avoided because it's just not sustainable. Like my greatest
yeah.
fear when it comes to interracial dating is having a child, leaving that child with their grandparent, and their grandparent saying something to them anti-black, anti-features, like
Mm,
colorist, just something to them that is
mhm,
going to stick with them that I won't have the opportunity to protect them from. Like whoever's
mhm,
going to be in my child's circle needs to be on team, reinforced self-confidence and positivity and everything that they need, because the world is going to do all the things they want to do against them anyways. So,
mm,
I would say the distinction with the pros is like, you'll do some cool stuff. Like you'll go, to a quinceañera, you'll go, to a boat thing because it's like just boats, like you'll experience things in your life that you didn't experience before. Um, and the cons, I would say, oh, actually another pro, one more quick pro. Uh, my hair. When I date interracially, I have somehow gotten unanimous support from the people that I've been dating on my hair. Support that like I didn't even get
mm,
from black men. And that was a huge thing because like, on one hand I have like the black guys calling me nappy headed and all the things. And then the other side I have, buy-in from people who are non-black. And it was crazy to me because I realized to a degree that even though they didn't know everything, like they didn't understand the bonnet, like they didn't understand why my hair did what it
mhm,
did, like they accepted it. They were curious about it. They touched it. They
mhm,
asked if they could touch it. And then when they touched, they went in soft and tried to figure it out. Like there's still a weirdness to feeling like your existence is a puzzle because it's like I'm living the same lived experience as you, but for my
mhm,
survival, I need to know how everybody in the world operates. I need to know a little bit about everyone. I need to understand how everyone functions. And when you are, in the cocoon of your own culture, I realize that not everybody feels that same way and not everybody has to.
mhm,
And that's sort of
mhm,
why I have the distinction between minority and white, because the experience of full culture shock is on the white side. Like to my surprise, I have been the first black person that a lot of white people have dated and a lot of black people dated. Like I've tried to
wow.
go on a date. I told y'all I tried to go on since I've been in Washington, I've actually been out with two black men who had never dated another black woman. And they told me that kind of like excited, like, oh, I've never actually been out with a black woman, and like what I get is people, I'm not what they expect. So it doesn't even work to really fetishize me because like people come in with the idea of what I am and I'm never that, you
Mhm.
know? So like,
And then they disappointed because their projections weren't the full human
yes,
that they're actually out
yeah,
with.
that they're like, oh, you have depth and you're kind of, that's not what I expected. But the cons, I would say, I mean, the biggest one is just racism. Like, how anybody handles racism, how anybody moves through the world with me as a black woman. So like one thing I noticed is a lot of specifically white men that I've talked to don't feel the need to have to get into the fight, right? Like they don't have any stake in social equality or justice. They don't have, it doesn't affect them personally. It's not something they
Mm,
worry
that's a
about.
lie.
Well, that's what they
Mhm.
think, right? Like when you ask them like, "Hey, what's your stance on social justice?" Because if I'm taking you seriously, that's got to come up because I need to know based on what you think, just before I even bring up how I want you to be treat me in that instance.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying that if you are in a situation where you have privilege, you absolutely have a stake in how things
Yeah,
shake out if it
absolutely.
changes.
Yeah, I know it's their
Mhm.
Your stake is in
perception.
keeping shit the same so that you keep your privilege.
And so I think a lot of guys that I try to date, the con is that they think that I will be able to isolate my black experience to me and then they'll just get to be my boyfriend or whatever. Like, they don't think that it's ever going to come up a situation where they'll need to stand up and defend me, that they'll need to talk to me or comfort me because of whatever's going on in the news. Like, they aren't fully aware, and it's like, they're kind of just like, well, you know, obviously the race is a bad thing, or like there's no depth a lot of the times to the answers and stuff that I get, because I think they're so scared they're going to say the wrong thing. And then, like, the con is, like, in the moment of crisis, just not being willing, or not, you know, just not actually engaging in the protection of myself, or engaging in the understanding of what I'm doing. And that has ended relationships for me, you know, feeling like, you know, did you notice when that person said XYZ to me? Did you notice when that happened and your friend said da 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 da? Like, I think casual racism is a thing that a lot of white people deal with. Like, oh, you know, I'm progressive, but, you know, my grandfather is a flaming racist, you know? And, you know, it's not a situation where nobody associates with that person. It's just you grin and bear it for holidays. And so it's like, all right, like, obviously you can't change your family, like Stephanie said, but how are you going to stand up in the environment that I come to Thanksgiving? You know, like, it's a lack of safety in some ways, or, you know, feeling like you got to train your partner ahead of time in certain situations that you might not have to if you were both minorities. So yeah, I think for me, it's just like, when I date outside my race, the question is always how serious I'm being taken. You know, because some people just want to also just have a fun time. Like, in dating in general, you can't necessarily ask anybody to be serious about you, because you're just always figuring it out. But there are some folks who I think probably didn't take me seriously at the start, and were just looking to have some fun, just trying to, you know, scratch that itch, and then found that there was a lot more depth to me than they expected, found that they actually wanted a relationship, and just were not equipped to actually be in a relationship with, you know, a Black woman. Because, you know, I was on a date with a white guy recently, and, you know, the first date, it was good because I noticed he didn't treat me differently. Like, he was calm, it was good. And I was like, yeah, nice. I appreciate that. I feel like a woman around you, like just a woman. And then the second date, like, I noticed he was a little stiff, but we still had a good time. And he wasn't really like romantic or like overly romantic, but I could tell he kind of wanted to go in for the kiss. And it's just like, if you haven't romanced me, I'm not going to do that, because then it's kind of like, why? You know, like, I want the kiss to be meaningful. I want to feel that connection.
And feel like it was actually coming from somewhere.
Yeah. And his sort of awkward hesitation, like, he didn't know where to, like, hold and stuff. I was just like, am I the first Black woman that you dated? Like, I usually try not to ask that, because the answer will always make me sad, but I had to. And he was just like, yes. And he was, like, pleasantly surprised, because he was like, oh, I was a little nervous that it would be different, or I wouldn't be able to, like, handle it. But I realized it was just the same. And, like, it's,
no, see, that's what I would have been like, and about. Like,
because I'm like, again,
like, I'm not playing with you. Like, it's okay being the first, but like, it's the way that you like approach me with it. Like, you know, because I'm Jason. I'm the first Black woman he's been with, but it's just the way that you approach me. But if he's like, that might be different. Like, if you're going to put me in that box, like, I'm out that. That's all I have to hear. Like, nice meeting you. I'm gonna.
I mean, he said that he realized it wasn't early on, and that we could just have fun. And he was surprised we had so many things.
It's still a weird thing to. It's a weird thing to say.
It's not something I haven't heard before. Like, that's
but
why
it made it like, you know, as adults we have like, you know, fully developed frontal lobes, so it made past all his decision making processes. Every like level of him that checks to see if he should say something. Is this problematic? Am I telling too much? He was like, check, we're good to go. And then he said, I thought it would be different, but it's just like normal.
It's true,
which,
right?
What situation had he concocted?
You're gonna be different. That's what I'm saying. Is like,
did he think you were gonna smash the table and stand on your feet and like? What was he expecting to be different? How you hold the spoon? Like, I'm so sorry. I digress.
Listen, I love both of you. Thank you for getting mad for me. I appreciate y'all. I was not mad because I would rather know where the dude is at than be, have him going online looking up stuff on how to date black women. Like it's just the realization that because I'm not a monolith, I'm not considered the standard of beauty. People think that we operate differently, and I'm not saying that I don't know if that's the truth or not. Like I don't know. Like,
I mean, there's what this guy and literally everyone needs to realize is that there's the same diversity within Black people and, variety as there is in any other group of humans.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he should have expected, that you could be anyone.
He could go on a
That's
date
what
with
he would expect if it
each
was
one of
any
us,
other person.
and we would be
right?
so different.
But because it's Black, and it is you in this, because it is Black, he has a whole catalog of what that means from who the fuck knows what. And now that came on the date with y'all. And that's why you sitting there wondering why he's saying weird shit to you on your second date. Why were you only normal in the first one? Was he just shocked the whole time? He was just in shock and just couldn't.
I mean, I brought it up too. Let's say I specifically asked him. If I hadn't said that, the conversation would have came up. But I'm just saying in
No, it
general
would
that
have.
there is still this mysticism of the Black woman, which I don't get in some ways because it's like we're everywhere at this point. If y'all don't understand that we're also just women, like, then I don't know what to do. But I think it's the benefit of being able to live in your own cocoon, and it applies to other minorities of different races too, because I've had interesting experiences. Like that same Cuban boyfriend whose mom was helping me with my hair did not understand a thing about it. Like I think it's a situation where it's also how you're raised. Like he had a brother, it was her and all the boys. So of course the emphasis is not going to be on her teaching him anything about her hair, about, Black hair or
I mean, did they have hair?
They did, but it was looser curls.
Oh,
He
okay.
had naturally curly hair, but he didn't need to cover it down. He didn't need to do anything. I love how minorities who aren't Black love mentioning how they had an afro when they were little. It's always a thing. Or even white
I
people.
don't know.
I had a
But
little thing fro. It's interesting.
I just asked because Tomas has completely different textured hair than me, but he does his hair. He has there are hair products involved. So I assume that with anyone with hair, you still have to learn how to do it. But I don't know. I feel like Black hair is a whole different conversation anyway. But let's talk about overall. Because dating is an experience, and I feel like when it comes to interracial love and being open to that as a whole, there are some processes that have to happen within you. There's some things that you have to accept about yourself and be really solid on. Yeah.
Yeah.
How has the process and opening yourself up and this relationship with love, how has it been healing?
I'll go
This
first.
is a healing
You're
podcast.
going first before Steph. I would say it's healing because, there's something about contrast that kind of makes you appreciate where you're coming from. It's the same way when you travel someplace, that is in a different continent, for example, that you feel almost more American. You almost feel like you are very aware of the stark differences, and that could make you proud or not proud, but either way, I feel like I am more secure as a Black woman having, dated every type of person there is to date, it's because in every single relationship I get to reinforce who I am and what I stand for, and I get to shore that up even against, folks that come from my own background. The hair issue has been a huge thing for me because I've always questioned, because of media, because of the way I was raised, I had the perm, I did the whole, cycle of acceptance, whether or not somebody could just accept my afro. When guys are like, "Oh, I love girls who I could just run my hands through their hair." Like, you could
Mm-hmm.
run your hands through my afro, you could run your hands through my braids, but that's not what you're saying, really. You know, like, you don't even
Mm-hmm.
realize the context of what you're asking for, you know. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway has been that my appeal is not rooted in any specific assumption of myself. You know, like when I date the Asian guy, when I date the white guy, when I date the Spanish guy, like I am the same in each of these versions, and how they receive me says more about themselves than it says about me. And
Mm-hmm.
like finally coming to that acceptance and that self-acceptance, you know, also helped with the sense of despair that I had. You know, like I was
Mm-hmm.
quite sad at the possibility of not being able to actually be with the black man, because I assumed that in the cradle of his blackness, I would feel accepted because I wouldn't have to explain something. I wouldn't have to explain what my experience was, and it would just be universal, and I could finally feel comfortable and safe in the relationship. But I'm also realizing that the black female experience and the black male experience is not the same. And black people being not a monolith also means that we won't always be able to offer that level of safety to each other. So the promise
Mm-hmm.
of black love being this haven of understanding is not true in my experience. It is
Ooh.
like, it is largely down to the person, you know, like it is
Mm.
largely down to the individual. The safest I ever felt in a relationship was a dude who was from Georgia. He was in the army, and anytime anybody stepped in my path, he was there to correct them politely. You know, like when I told him there was racial issues happening at my job, he was ready to show up in his fatigues at my job, you know, and like show the fuck out. Like he showed the most outrage I've ever seen regarding racial issues that I was experiencing, and validated my experience. And he was white, you know, and
Mm.
that was crazy to me because it opened my eyes. Like ultimately the point of love, right, in my opinion, and the thing that has allowed me to open myself up to interracial dating, is that you just need to find somebody who loves you for you and allows you to be you in the way that you are, and is willing to learn who you are without, you know, without prejudice, without assuming that you will be a certain way, and if you're not, then you're no longer valuable, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a class aspect too. Unfortunately,
Mm.
you know, a lot of black folks do not go to therapy or cannot afford therapy. So when I'm thinking I need a guy who's been therapized, often he might not be black, you know, like because they have access to
Mm-hmm.
therapy and certain things. So I've also been trying to massage my own ideas of what is necessary, you know, like can you do the work without therapy, stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
That's that's really smart. Like that's definitely things we got to think about because there's a lot of healing obviously that we can do outside of therapy. That's a part of why I created this podcast and why we're even having this conversation that we obviously hope that this helps someone. Um, so I really like you even mentioning that here, and especially in the context of dating, like how do we pursue healing in a decolonized way? Because
yeah.
I feel like that's what that's tied to. And how do we approach love in a way that is decolonized?
Yeah. And
Huge.
to just finish my thing real quick, like what I had noticed is that because of that lack of healing, because I had to get into a certain tax bracket in order to start getting myself the funds to get
Mm,
therapy, because I prioritize therapy and I'm allowed to express my emotions as a woman, a lot of the black men that I would start dating were in the beginning or early stages of their healing. And so our dynamic became one of me being the healer and them, you know, also having their baggage of black women. You know, it's the idea that we both feel rejected by each other, but somehow we're still not choosing each other. Weird confluence, you know, because the elephant in the room that we have not addressed is just, you know, we are not the standard of beauty for black men either in some instances. Like a lot of them preferred white women or Asian women. Like that was a lot of what I
or
was
Latinx
seeing.
women.
Or Latin
Hmm.
women, just anybody but us. And the idea was that it was because we were more difficult in some way, you know, like, you know, this the assumption that we are sassy. Every time a black comedian says the same joke about how we are from 19 something something, it just gets stamped further and further into society. And so
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like to be a Black woman, like Toni Morrison said something in her book, The Bluest Eye. I think it was just like, to be a woman in this world is to be a wound that will not heal. And I just think about that, just the idea that like sometimes I've dated people just sorely because they weren't a threat. Sometimes I've
Mm-hmm.
dated people just because I felt comfortable around them and I knew that they would not be long term, and I knew that they would not uh, be able to really provide me a positive experience beyond this 1 minute, but I was just happy to be held, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you are just experiencing your journey of dating, you have to just do what feels right in the moment and not let society tell you what is right for you, because it's a moving target and it's fickle and it will have you trying to chase things and be things that you will never be.
Ooh,
So focus on you and date who you want, girl.
Mm-hmm.
love it. I love it. Steph, how's this been healing? What's been the
Yeah.
journey for you?
I feel like when you open yourself to just love who you love, if you're not forcing yourself into a type of love, and it also takes away, like, I guess, the numbing. I feel like growing up, with interracial parents and interracial siblings, there becomes a point where you find the norm of things and the way that people speak to you, and the way that the expectations or the judgments that are placed on you, and you don't like open space to have the conversations, because you numb yourself. You're like, oh, this is just normal. They're going to judge me. They're going to question why my sister looks like that, and my mom looks like that, and my dad looks like this, and or they're going to ask me questions about, was a Black man not good enough for my mom, or you just get used to the way that people talk, and you numb yourself to it, and
I'm so
bringing
sorry. No,
myself
but you're
into
not good enough.
But
what?
they'll be coming out their face with something wild like that.
Like,
Yeah.
I tried so hard not to laugh, but I just kept on imagining somebody like, was Black man not good enough for your mom?
Your mom don't like that dark meat. What?
Yeah, and no, it happened to me too, right? So then I bring myself into the dating world, and then dating interracial, like I did, like Puerto Rican and Black and white, but whenever, when I dated like a person that was not white, I feel like I had, I didn't have any questions or pressures of the person I was dating. But when you date a white person, I have had that question, like, oh, like, why do you only date white men? And I'm like, I don't only date white men. Like, that's a lot of my exes are white men, but that's not the only person I date. But it allows, it kind of, for me, it takes me away from being numb into normalizing the way that I'm being treated, and it forced me into educating and being more vocal, and being able to stand up for myself, and to share my experiences. And so I think that was healing for me, because when I put myself in a situation where people are going to question me a lot about who I'm dating and what they look like, I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I had to speak up, because it's a cycle that I didn't want to be stuck in, of just saying it's okay for people to ask me these questions or talk to me like this. Like, now I'm older and I have a voice, and I'm going to have these conversations with you. But I also, like I was telling Celine earlier, is I get defensive though, because I have had there is a healing that still needs to be processed, right? Because when people ask me about interracial relationships, I get defensive. It's the first thing that my body just does, is it's ready to go to war, right? Because of the hurt I've had in my life as a child and growing up to an adult. And so it's opening my space and being like, well, why am I being asked these questions? Is it really in a place to harm me? Is this, am I being accepted? Are people listening? Are they being open to a conversation? So it's that's where I'm still healing, is because someone's asking you a question doesn't mean it's to harm me or harm anyone I love. sometimes it's to open themselves and to educate themselves or to understand the experience. So I was recognizing that in myself, and I'm like, all right, I still work on this a little bit.
Okay, but she's giving healing. She's giving boundaries, right? Like, we love to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, what y'all are saying is so relatable. Like, all of it. The healing part, because the part about, like, having to have conversations and, like, the part about feeling more ownership, like I both have felt more ownership of like my community, my culture, my Black culture, my Black community, through time and a part of, I mean, I've been with my husband for 7 years, so it's not like it was about him, but sure, during this period of time, I've absolutely grown in my understanding of how, you know, I embody Blackness and where I fit in my culture. And I feel like part of that has been in challenging this narrative. Like when I'm having conversations, even with Black men in my family who I have a relationship with, right? Like your family, literally still having to like have this conversation of, oh, well, how can you like be invested in the Black community if like your partner's not Black? Like
in the same way that all the Black men who have Black partners are also invested in the community,
but it's not even an understanding. It's not even a conversation for them because of the inherent right ownership that they see that they think that they have over the Black community. They're Black no matter who they date, and not only are they Black, but their partner is also now entitled to speak on the Black community, right?
Yeah.
Because we've seen this time and time again, where we're supposed to listen to the non-Black partner of a Black man tell us something about our community, right? My husband knows the fuck better, okay? So that's just all I know. Okay, so you can't sleep your way into the Black community in my relationship. And so things are just a little bit different. I have had conversations with the Black men in my family trying to kind of tease out how that makes sense to them. Like, I'm like, do you genuinely feel like when you are dating a non-Black woman, she becomes Black because you're dating her? Have never gotten a solid answer on it. So if someone, someone listening would like to tell us about how that works, I don't know. But those are the conversations. I get the defensiveness that might come up, but I also understand that ownership, Sid, that you were speaking to, because I feel it too. Like, this is my community. This is my Black skin. It don't change. This brown right here, that is the exact color of the brown crayon. Okay, it don't change based off of who I'm with. It stays just as brown and beautiful.
And my kids will be Black, and everything that, happens in the future will be melanated. Like that's just the truth of it. That's just the long and short of it.
And I think that might be that on that, y'all. This is the Hot Girls Healing Podcast. Thank you so much to my guests, Stephanie and Sydney. If anyone would like to follow your word or your work, is there a way for them to do that?
My word and my work. You're talking to me? Am I supposed to be talking?
Either of you, if you're on social media, if people can follow you.
I'm not prepared for that. I don't have like Instagram. I'm not very well. Like I'm not like really into the whole social media thing. But I'm on LinkedIn. I'm looking for my thing. So Sydney, if you want to go, let's figure this out.
People in your DMs on LinkedIn. Hey, I heard you have a job application open, and I'm trying to apply.
That's true. I guess most of the people that I bring on usually do have something to promote, or
Yes. You can follow me at RainyFro, RAINI_FRO on Twitter. I'm a game designer by trade, so I just post random stuff on there. Feel free. Also, don't feel obligated. Totally cool to just hear my voice, and that'd be that.
Yes, exactly. This is definitely a choose your adventure place.
Yes, Do you head to the mountains of Caucasus or head to Dynamite Village?
Only the nerds know what you're talking about, babe. Okay, so
I was talking about white and black swirling. It was too deep. It's fine.
oh, the Caucasus Mountains or the
Or
chocolate.
Dynamite, like I know y'all are not with it. Y'all are just not. It's
Just
fine.
gonna say.
Okay, it did take a little bit of explaining, but
Okay,
we're
if I
here
said
with you.
it
We
would,
got
would that be
you.
more? Go ahead.
Thank
Oh
you.
my God, yeah. This is why I'm on my healing journey because I am a mess. This is the Hot Girls Healing
Same.
Podcast. I'm your host, Salenna Green. Thank you so much for coming. We will
Thank
see you in next time.
you.